Just after 7:30, and if you are just joining us, first of all, thank you for being with us tonight on OpenLine. We are talking about LGBTQ discrimination in schools, and also we want to highlight this segment, the resources to help kids. I have Jace Wilder joining me as a guest tonight from the Tennessee Equality Project. Jace, once again, thank you for being with us. We should mention you are a student at Belmont, so you are a student right now, and in the thick of it and everything that has to do with being a student and going through the education system, let's talk about resources and why they are so badly needed.
Yeah, of course. So for anyone, we all need mental health resources, very particularly in this kind of time where there's a lot of stress going on as a student. You know, it's been even harder to function within a pandemic society. But when it comes to resources, one of the things that we like to focus on is LGBT particular resources. So for Tennessee, that can be reaching out to us as an advocacy group and to, try and get involved, because sometimes it's just helpful to have community. It's also getting involved in some of our more high school based things, such as Oasis Center, where they have groups that are very particular to allowing for LGBT students to just gather. And then GLSEN also has what are called GSAs, or Gay Straight Alliances, that are just called GSAs now, in which a teacher can help sponsor one of these groups. It can be started by students, and what they do is they just support each other in schools, and it's just an alliance group for them to talk, hang out, educate each other if they want to. It could be a lot of different things. We've seen some kids that actually do a LGBT friendly prom with GLSEN as well. So there's a lot of different resources, but also with mental health, there's also the Trans Lifeline, which is a suicide hotline that's very specific to transgender individuals. And then obviously the suicide hotline, they are also trained regarding LGBT issues. So they're a great resource as well.
I think over the past year and a half during this pandemic, mental health has become, and taking care of your mental health has become more widely accepted and encouraged. Do you find that also within the LGBTQ community, that people are more willing to reach out now? It's becoming normalized?
I believe so. I think that there is still, very particularly to trans students, there's still a lot of hesitation because of the matters at hand that we've already discussed about, not feeling safe with faculty, not feeling safe within schools. So even though the conversation is needed, wanted, and open within the community, the ability to reach out, especially whenever students aren't able to identify who someone else that is LGBT friendly is, they may still feel limited. And this is horribly caused an increase in reports of suicidality within our LGBT students.
What should schools be doing, just administration wise? How can they help from the top down?
Right. So one of the easiest ways is just rebuilding anti-bullying policies to very specifically identify that LGBTQ discrimination will not be permitted, that it just falls under those no tolerance rules as well. This automatically creates a safer environment, creates a policy that students can see that they are covered and that they will be respected, and that there is a matter of respect be put in classrooms. There's been proof that this policy within itself increases, safety within schools. But also,
go ahead.
I was going to say also training for our teachers as well, to be inclusive, to know the language, to know why it's important to respect a student's pronouns and such. So
I'm just looking at the 2019 GLSEN report, the school climate report here in Tennessee. The latest one I see is 2019. Is that the latest one?
Yes.
When will the next one be done? And do you anticipate any major changes?
So the next one is still in process right now. Obviously, there's some issues with the fact that we have been in a pandemic. So it not only from data collection, but also communication. So it's been a bit harder, and there's also different things we have to consider with it as well this time around. But I think that very unfortunately, we are going to see an increase in those numbers that are negative about seeing harassment, seeing matters of suicidality from our students, dropout rates. There's been reports to GLSEN of incidences in East Tennessee where it became kind of viral on TikTok of two Black trans girls that were suspended after they were trying to report being physically harassed in their school. And then when they reported to faculty didn't respond, and they became fed up, and they ended up getting suspended for basically getting mad about that. We've seen also as well mental health crises within our teachers as well, especially our LGBT teachers, as a lot of their jobs are at risk. Some have actually reported that they have been fired because of some of these laws, been told to take down any kind of rainbow anything. It doesn't even have to be a flag, but a rainbow anything in their classroom because it might insinuate that they're LGBT friendly. So unfortunately, I think we're going to see a negative climb.
Let's get back to the line. Samuel is joining us once again. Samuel, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yes, for me?
Yes, go ahead, Samuel.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Like I said, my biggest concern, I'm from a rural community. I think the biggest concern as far as my peers is when somebody hasn't actually changed. They don't want someone that, it don't matter how they identify, it's what they are as of right now. In a locker room or a bathroom, in my opinion, we need to go to a unisex bathroom, and the people that identify one way or the other be able to use that.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. Samuel, thank you again for calling in. And I think that's a great jumping off point to look at what was passed in this last legislative session regarding the bathroom bill here in Tennessee. The governor actually said, excuse me, it bars trans students and school staff from using public school restrooms that align with their gender identity. The bill says that the schools have to provide a reasonable accommodation to students, faculty, and staff who are unwilling or unable to use a public restroom or changing room that aligns with their birth sex. And it could be a single occupancy restroom or a changing facility, or they can use the employee restroom or a changing facility. What is wrong with that in your point of view, Jace?
Right. So if I take, for example, I went to school in Cheatham County originally, but I moved to Metro, where a lot of the school campuses are a lot larger. If you tell me that I need to only use the nurse's restroom, that can mean for me that I'm going from all the way across campus from my class to go to this nurse's restroom, have to wait for someone to actually unlock it, if they're even there to unlock it, because nurses aren't there all the time and not everyone has a key to it. And then I'm late getting back to my class if I'm even able to get back to this class. So a student in that position has to choose between being able to participate in their class or being able to go use the restroom. And that's if their school offers that accommodation. This law doesn't particularly say in its language that it has to offer that as an accommodation. It just says that it has to offer some sort of accommodation, which can just mean for the student that reported them that they removed that trans student from the bathroom or that trans faculty. And again, that person doesn't even have to be trans. It can honestly be someone who just doesn't look the stereotypical way of a female or male that gets reported. And then that accommodation goes into place and they're told to leave the restroom. So even though some of that language can seem like good, good policy, or that it is helpful in some way, it's truly not, because it's still isolating and it's not solving any issue. And the trans students that are using the restroom aren't causing an issue. There's been no reports of there actually being a trans student or trans faculty that has caused harassment or violence. And having some of these laws that preclude a problem that doesn't exist, kind of like what we said before, doesn't fix anything. It just creates more problems and more questions like that, where we do now start asking those questions where we didn't have them before because it was never a problem.
Very well said. Okay, Samuel, I hope that answers your question. Thank you for calling in once again. Let's again start to go, well, you know what? I think we're running up against another commercial break. Let's take another commercial break. When we come back, I want to go through again the 5 laws that recently passed in the legislative session that some groups are calling the slate of hate. We'll walk through those next.